it's really, we're launching an app.
Okay.
And it's to engage the production community, and it's sort of heighten their ability to communicate. And we're launching in Atlanta because it's such a hub, and it's turned out that in our beta run, got a lot of activity out of Atlanta already.
Yeah, it's amazing how Atlanta and Georgia has become this great center for the movie industry, man. It has just gone crazy here the last decade or so.
It's been tremendous. It's, it kind of starts with infrastructure intersecting with tax advantages, and a kind of local weather patterns that are very functional for filming. But you got to say a lot of hats off to Tyler Perry for creating a bunch of facilities and sort of proving that it could be a hub. But it's grown so much from there in a really important way, which is why our impact team really wanted to make this launch this app on a broader. It's been out there, but now it's they're making the big push. They already have 18,000 people who've joined, and a lot of people getting work already last year. I mean, it's taking off really quickly.
Why don't you tell me more about the specifics of that app right now, so I make sure that we're covered on this? And this is available for everyone right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now there's no fee, no cost whatsoever. You go to impact.net, you can learn all about it and how to sign on. It's a little bit like LinkedIn is, but it's very, very focused on the entertainment industry, and below the line people, especially crew members, and department heads, and that sort of thing. And it's a way to interact. It's a way to expedite people who are putting together crews, just knowing who's available and what their work experience is. And Atlanta is such a hotbed, and it's also reached such a point where they need to look outside of Atlanta to continue to build the production team in a really effective way.
I've been anchoring local news here, and I was the voice of the Atlanta Falcons for a number of years on radio as well. And I'll tell you what, this place is unrecognizable in terms of its growth and in terms of its evolution here. I mean, when I got here 40 years ago, it was still kind of the Allman Brothers and Burt Reynolds and Sharky's Machine and Deliverance and all of that kind of stuff, and barbecue and sweet tea and kudzu. And it's not that way anymore. It's really an unrecognizable city in many ways. It really no longer has any sort of Southern feel about it whatsoever.
Well, it's certainly emerged as one of the hubs in the world, and this is starting to broaden out. But what's interesting is there is so much demand that productions are being mounted elsewhere. Last year we had a production in Calgary, Canada. They had a hard time crewing up because they have a good talent base there, but there were other productions there as well. And something like Impact is meant to be able to help solve those problems in a really expedient way, and look, to democratize the process, because it's always been a kind of technology has affected so many aspects of the business, but not so much hiring practices. It's sort of this word of mouth kind of thing, which leads to sustaining a lot of hiring patterns that have always been there before, when in fact there are so many talented people who are really ready to do the work, do the job, and do it really, really well. Beyond the contact sheet of any one production manager or line producer. So we hope it really makes a lot of sense to production, because it's more efficient and you find great people, and also just opens up the field around the country.
One of the amazing things about you and your life as as I look at it from the outside, is you've been immersed in this from the time that you were a little boy. You've never lost your edge. You've never lost your focus or your desire to do remarkable work.
Oh, thank you.
How do you figure that?
It's pretty simple. I truly love it. I recognized that early on as a boy, that I really loved the process. I loved the people who were attracted to the process. I like the wide variety of sensibilities and backgrounds that are attracted to the process. And yet, it's hard, demanding work, but you get great feedback. Every so often, something really clicks, and it's very exciting. And even when it doesn't, if all of these passionate people have come together to try to make something work, to try to tell a story well, it's going to have impact on people. It's going to find its audience at its given time. And I love how it's broadened out beyond Hollywood. And again, a part of what we're doing is we're recognizing that and helping to facilitate that, because it only benefits audiences. It only benefits our business and the process, both as an art, and an industry. I think it's just an exciting process to be a part of, and we want as many people to be able to engage as possible.
Do you worry about the movie business, about where it's going, where technology dwarfs stories? I mean, your stories are always remarkable. They are unforgettable. And yet we see a lot of movies. Now I'm sounding like an old guy, get off my grass. But sometimes the technology and the fast edits and all of that, I don't want to see that. I want stories of the human experience.
It's always shifting. It's always shifting, and it's always going to shift. And yet some things, even silent movie comedy styles, they don't vanish altogether. They show up in unusual ways. There's a movie that was very kind of cool and cutting edge and everywhere all at once. So, I'm getting the title wrong, actually, but it was it was big success. I saw it the other day and I said, wow, there's some great Buster Keaton stuff in there. Wow. I'm seeing a little Jackie Chan in there. That's Jackie Chan is, in a funny way, did for martial arts, what Fred Astaire did for dance. One thing just builds upon the other. And I suppose that while, I have my taste and sensibility, what I'm always interested in is, sort of, what does a story demand? What's possible? What are the tools available to tell that story for this audience today? And because of the wide range of outlets, and yeah, we probably have too many, 500 channels or whatever, we have probably too many shows and whatnot. It does allow, most of us to find something we love. It might take a little searching, but the storytellers are out there speaking to audiences in very precise and particular ways. If you're interested enough to do a little exploring, I think it's a time when you can find really, stories that will resonate with you, wherever you are, whatever your sensibility or whatever kind of entertainment you're looking for.
When I knew I was going to be talking to you today, I flashed back to maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I found myself anchoring the noon news here in Atlanta at this NBC affiliate. And immediately following the news was Andy Griffith. And I remember looking at the overnight Nielsen ratings. And the moment Andy Griffith came on with you guys, it went crazy.
No kidding.
The numbers absolutely through the proverbial roof. And that mythical Mayberry allure has never lost anything. And
it's remarkable.
It only grows.
It is really remarkable, and I think it meant a lot to people, and even found new audiences. I'm hearing anecdotally during COVID, because it's of its kind of soothing quality. But again, I say a lot of that has to do with time when a network supported a very unique voice. Mm-hmm. Now, Andy Griffith didn't write those shows, and technically he didn't even produce them, and he never directed them or wanted to direct. But it definitely reflected his sensibility and it's very unique. It, you know, in its own way, it wasn't a formula at all. It was unlike anything else. In fact, reviewers didn't like it because it was just seemed weird to them, you know, and kind of like, who wants to see this show? But audiences wanted to see it. And when the show went off the air in 1968, it was the #1 show in the nation. And Andy wanted to move on and do other things, which he did, including Matlock and a lot of great movie work. So as an artist, you know, he'd had his Mayberry experience, but it echoes on, it resonates, and it's amazing to me. What I take away from it more than anything is a kind of an ethos, a belief, a kind of understanding of how that kind of creative problem solving feels, how satisfying it can to be a part of it, and how much hard work it is. Because that show looks easy and like everybody was just showing up, but I remember the sweat and the difficult long conversations and the rewrite. You know, the writers in there working on those things that Don Knotts and Andy Griffith made look so effortless.
You know, it's also interesting to those of us in the South of how the show is tied to the Atlanta Braves and the Superstation, WTBS.
Yeah.
I mean, for Ted Turner, it really launched the Superstation along with the Braves. And the Braves and the Andy Griffith Show, for me, are always linked together almost as Atlanta Fulton County Stadium was with it. And I know you must hear that.
I have heard that, and in its own odd way, that show endured forever. I haven't checked in recent years in Chicago, and it was the lunchtime show in Chicago of all places. And so there is something very universal about it. Now, look, as a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, even though I live in the East, I still maintain my allegiance to the Dodgers, and with admittedly the Mets as my #2 team. So we're in a heated thing right now. You know, it's been an, you know, just amazing, the people who connect with the show and why they connect with it. And you know, look, my wife Cheryl watches it and you know, late at night when she's trying to get to sleep, and because it soothes her. She said, "It's not you, honey. I'd like to say it is. Little Opie's cute, but it's Mayberry. It's Mayberry." And there was just something about the tone of the show, the honesty of those characters, the brand of humor, and the themes and ideas that they focused on that, you know, yielded something enduring. And I'm, you know, forever grateful to have been a part of it.
You know, living in the South, I've met all these people. I just have, you know, the characters are so much the way this life has been in this part of the world, which obviously with population changes and demographic changes and all of that. But I mean, I've known all those people, and I think that's another part of the authenticity of the program that's enduring generationally.
Well, you know, Andy knew them, and you know, and it's, again, not that he was dictating or writing, but there was something kind of universal about it. I mean, you know, we had this. Andy used to talk about it. You know, this sort of Aaron Rubin, this New York Jewish comedy writer, and Andy Griffith, this you know, this Southern boy, very well educated, by the way, you know, college graduate, a teacher himself before he ever, you know, really cracked show business. Right. But they really bonded over these characters, and they just understood the heartbeat of what those characters could be. And Andy, you know, he used to say Mayberry is not of this moment. It's really, you know, it's the town of my childhood. So in a funny way, it was nostalgia for the South in a way, even when it was produced.
But you know, every time you wonder about his greatness, just watch a face in the crowd, and you'll just it's a staggering performance.
Oh, he was a great talent, and you know, and a loss, and I miss him, and he was, you know, very, very meaningful to me and supportive, you know, over the years, long after the show ended. Loved that I'd become a director. Thought that was just great, and it was you know, always great to connect with Andy.
All right, I've only got 1 minute with you. 1 minute left. Do you sometimes wake up and think about your life, how extraordinary it has been? I mean, are you brooding and reflective, and sometimes do you shake your head about this extraordinary journey that you've been on from the time you were a child?
I try not to focus on it too much because then it becomes a pinch me moment.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to stay busy and forward thinking. I've had so many great opportunities. Sometimes I think I've made the most of them. Sometimes I think I could have done better. But again, what I learned, back on that show was you put your best foot forward, you give it everything you've got. And, the audience is going to speak to you. You may like what you hear or you may not, but it's a kind of a way of life, And so my brother and I published a book last year called The Boys, a memoir of Hollywood and family, which was really just about our childhood. My brother Clint was a child actor also. In fact, he worked on the Andy Griffith Show somewhat. And it was all we focused on was our childhood, either as the kids of Rance and Gene Howard, or as the young moppets on the various shows that we were acting in. Of course, there's a lot about the Andy Griffith Show, and it was really interesting to look back and reflect, and frankly, be grateful for what a remarkable opportunity that was. I don't recommend child acting for very many people, but I was very, very, very blessed, very fortunate in terms of where I landed, who I got to work with, and who I got to learn from.
It's been a great pleasure and a great honor talking with you. Thank you. And I grew up with a Volkswagen Beetle as well, like the one that you have. That was my first automobile. So
Me too. Me too.
I always enjoy seeing that picture of you with it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I still got it. I still take it out and putt around, and it puts a smile on people's faces.
Absolutely.
All right.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you. Be well. Bye.